I am back again with the second video. To be a victim or not be a victim. To think you're a victim or to think you're not a victim. That's what this series of videos is about. Now, before we go on, I'm going to talk to you about something frivolous. I like to do my hair in a nice way for the videos. I like to put on my makeup, and I like to put on my earrings. I also like to put on a nice shirt or top, And I just burped. Did you hear it? So I think what happened today was I got the hair done, the makeup done, the earrings done. I got the color of the blouse, but I didn't fix the blouse. So now I'm going to take a minute or two just to fix myself so I can finish my video. Because I can see this as well as you can see it. So that leads me to these words. I'm looking into my own self. And I'm not really probably teaching this, but I'm revealing this about myself, things that happened to me. Okay, so hold on a minute. So if I had an editor editing this, it would probably all be done ahead of time. But that's not life, Somebody might knock on your door and you have on your pajamas, and maybe you have rollers in your hair. We can't be perfect all the time. The only perfect one is Jesus. And also, I'm sucking on a cough drop because I had a coughing spell in the last video. So, here I am a little bit fixing myself up, and I'm sucking on a cough drop. So I think the word victim means that you are not the person that did the crime. You're the person that got hurt by the crime. And sometimes it's not a crime. Sometimes it's a offense. But I like to use the word hurt. It's very simple. But there's a lot of degrees of hurt. There's verbal abuse. There's physical abuse. There's mental abuse. There's financial abuse. Psychological abuse. People can get hurt in all different ways, and if you hold it inside, then the first time it happened, you were a victim. Second time it happened, and you keep on holding it in and never resolving it, then you have a root of bitterness. You're holding a grudge. So that leads me to something else. I didn't know this word until recently. The word is clinging. I was told that there are clinging roots. So you don't only have a root of bitterness growing up into a bitter tree, you have a clinging root. And this is kind of like whenever parents raise their children, and during the years when you're raising your children, you put a lot of deposits in of things like love, concern, discipline. Every once in a while there's rage and anger. I'm not saying that this is normal and that it should be there, but it does happen. But when they go away and leave home, you have the empty nest. Now, I always said that I didn't have an empty nest. In fact, when my children first went to college, I didn't have an empty nest. And that's because when they all left, I was living in an apartment that was subsidized by my income. It was a very nice townhouse, but we had ended up on welfare because my my husband that I had babies with was abusive, and we ended up leaving and went to women's shelters and ended up in the projects. So even though I didn't grow up with that welfare mentality, we ended up that way, and I did everything I could to get out of it, but it didn't work. So we fell into the years and years and years of all that. So the children are paid for in a grant, and the parent gets that money for each child, and then they calculate your rent on your income. Well, when each child gets out of high school, they take that grant away, and then they recalculate your rent because your income changed. And so things change in that area in such a way that the person who is the parent is financially strapped. Actually, when all the children move out, the parent there's no more to the grant. It's very small, limited. But on the other hand, the people that you're renting from, they don't want to give you a beautiful townhouse with 4 bedrooms when the children aren't there. It's only you. So the calculations go up and down, and my rent became very high, and I had no other way to supply myself with income. Wait a minute, I did work back then. Yeah, that's right, I did work. But it wasn't, in my thinking, it was like, hey, I'm not even at home that much. I did have a job where I stayed overnight as a caregiver. That's what it was. And I actually stayed almost every night at this other house being a caregiver. And all of my children were growing up, teenagers, going into high school, going to college. And so I did provide for them the home, the townhouse, with bedrooms, and they had a kitchen, and even though I was overnight at this place taking care of people, I would go home every day in the daylight and clean and cook and manage things for the kids. But this whole thing of when my last child went off, he went to the Navy instead of college, I realized I'm living here in this townhouse now with high rent instead of low rent, with no other people here except me, and I don't even sleep here. I sleep at the place where I'm taking care of my patients, my clients. I had a quadriplegic man, an elderly man, and an Alzheimer's lady, the 3 of them. They were the parents, and the quadriplegic was the son. So as circumstances took over my life, which happened to me almost 100% of the time, I just had to do what I had to do. So I had to jump. I had to get out. So I really didn't have anywhere to go, honestly. So I knew this lady from church, and she was a person that went to Florida in the summer, and she had a house that was empty. She closed up her house for the winter, and she said I could stay there temporarily till I found an apartment. So I kept on working at the place where I took care of these other people. But then during the day, I left that place because that wasn't my shift. And I went to her house. Well, the problem was it was winter and she had turned off all the heat and the utilities. And I don't know how she did that actually, because you can't turn the heat off when you have pipes with, maybe she turned the water off. Yeah, I think she turned the water off. And she did turn the stove off. I really didn't have much there, except I would walk in the door and lay on the couch with a heavy blanket on me to comfort me, but in the cold of it. So it really wasn't really much of a residence to stay at. So I managed to get an apartment. And I don't know why I'm telling you this now. I got off on this. It's like I got off on a tangent. I don't know why I'm telling you this. So the victimization thing, I guess, was by the welfare system. You know, the floating levels of the needs. If people are needy, they give it to you. And when you're not needy, they take it away. So another thing about the welfare system is, because of these levels of changes where they decide in their office what the value is of everything and what you need to have, and they make all the decisions, and you either get it or you don't get it. But one thing about the welfare system is they have always put something on the letter that they send you, and it's a threat. They always put a threat. So on one hand, they're giving you the right to be sustained in an area of financial area, and then they give the threat. So the threat is, do it by this day or you'll lose all your benefits. Turn all your papers in by this day or you'll lose all your benefits. So there's this threat. So I believe I was victimized by the abuse of my third husband in order to throw me into the system where I didn't want to be, in a poverty level that I couldn't get out of. Now, I couldn't get out of it. I tried several times to work legitimately and raise my kids. Like during the day when they were in school, I tried to get a job at a grocery store. And of course, you have to pay taxes, and then you report your paychecks to the welfare people. But when you first get the jobs, you are required to buy a uniform, buy a pair of shoes that are supposed to be the kind of shoe to wear. And even I did nurse's aid work. Yeah, that's one thing. They wanted you to have the right uniform and the right shoes. But before you can pay for the shoes or pay for the uniform, you get a letter from the welfare system, and it says, we raised your rent and we took away your food stamps, and we're not going to pay this utility. So all of a sudden you say, well, hey, I just started this job. I don't even get a paycheck yet. I didn't even get one paycheck yet. And how am I going to pay my rent and not have money for food if you take my food stamps away? How am I going to do that? And how am I going to get in my makeshift car, my junker that sometimes it blows up? I have to use a screwdriver to put it under the hood to put the screwdriver in between the starter and the alternator, and then get back in the car and turn the ignition on, and then get back out and take the screwdriver out and put the hood down, and then drive for a while. That's the car that I was going to work in, and I didn't even get a paycheck yet. So I know that I'm telling you this now because I recently, at the age of 74, it makes me very sad. I do get a Social Security check, but the welfare system cut me off in June. Totally, they took me off of medical assistance. And at this point in my life, I am a victim of the welfare system. And I'm sad now because it happened. And I couldn't make it stop because I didn't get the papers in time. But also, if you backtrack a couple weeks, I did what I was supposed to do, and the person that was interviewing me over the phone for me to do my recertification said that it was complete. So I didn't know that there was a couple papers that I didn't turn in. And on my behalf, I made some phone calls after that day of recertification with the man on the phone. I made phone calls after that to the statewide number. And they said, oh yeah, it's complete. I said, are you sure everything was turned in? They said, oh yes. Now, the thing is, businesses have learned to say, this phone call is recorded. But what's the use if they're not going to go back and listen to all the phone calls and put it in chronological order and know that I did it right? They don't care. And I'm not saying that they personally, in a human way, don't care. What I'm saying is the computer world and the business of life now has gotten so speedy of just nobody has a split second to even look at their phone to see if they got a text, or nobody has a split second to listen to a voicemail. I'm really going to get off track now and tell you something else. I like to use the telephone. I don't like to use email. But for some reason, all of a sudden the world wants everything to be on email. And if you know what that means, it means electric mail. E for electric. Electric mail. And you have to read it. And you have to look it up. And you have to look up the right word to get the right email. And everybody has a different email. And if you have your own email, there's something about a password. You have to have the right password. And if you put in the wrong password, then somebody younger will be sitting beside you and they'll say, I'll try this one. Well, that's not in my mind and my brain to remember. So all of a sudden I have different passwords that don't work on my email. And then I have a whole world of people around me that don't want to listen to my voicemails. They don't pick up the ding or the beep when I shoot them a text message. And I have complied with everybody else's way of doing things. And even back to the other video of the lady that I was having a problem with, her doing the paper for me. She wants me to sit inside of her office in her ball of confusion and mess and wait for her to calm her brain down to do the paper, when I don't have to go inside of her confusion. I could stand outside the door, or I could stay away totally, and she could take responsibility to do her side of it. So I'm not totally over this thing with her. And I'm not totally over the thing with welfare, so I am a victim. And I can say it, I am a victim. I'm a victim of being falsely accused. I'm a victim of being set up for this ridiculous situation. And God is saying, just grow up, Mary Lou. Be mature. Lift your shoulders back. Stand up. Stand against it with a firm word and say no. Oh, so I have to do all that. And what's happening to me is it's presenting itself to me as a big migraine headache. It's making my stomach sick. And I have like a clog in my head, like a fog in my head, because enough is enough. Enough is enough. I've been falsely accused enough. I've been in the trap of welfare long enough. And I need to get out of it. And I don't know how to get out of it. But I have since learned that I can gradually not depend on it. There's different ways this works in your mind. Dependency on something. So I'm still very upset, because another thing that happened during this time when the medical assistance was turned off, it's like the rug was pulled out from under me, where my I want to say finances, but medical assistance affects things in a way that it's like your finances, but it's a little bit different, because Social Security is the financial part. But that's the part that has Medicare, and if you lose your medical assistance, then you're on the Medicare, which you would think that would be wonderful, but it's not. As soon as you get on Medicare and you don't have medical assistance, they take $165 out of your Social Security check the following month. And they make you pay co-pays when you go to your doctors, and it's all very connected to financial things. And when you're on medical assistance, they provide a card for you if you're elderly and have a deep need of, if you're in poverty level really low and you have a deep situation, they have a card called the Shop Healthy card. Well, I lost that too. This was in the month of June. They told me, you don't have your Shop Healthy card anymore. And they cut that off. That is to buy things like over-the-counter, like Excedrin or vitamin D or suppositories or toothpaste. That's your over-the-counter stuff. But UPMC did a very nice thing with this Shop Healthy card. It also pays for some food items like milk and bread and eggs and orange juice. They consider certain things healthy food that they would allow you to pay for with that Shop Healthy card. Well, that was taken away. Then everybody does rent rebate, right? At my age, you're doing rent rebate. That means you get, according to what they looked at your rent, that you paid out last year, and then they give you a little bonus for this year. Well, I didn't get my rent rebate check, and everybody else in my building got theirs. I am a victim. But now, because I did a few videos last week on having a new perspective of life, I have decided to say, praise God. So what? So I'll get it one day whenever it's a surprise. And I don't have to spend it. I can save it. And if God was working all this in my favor, I suppose he was trying to get me around to that point of letting go. Don't depend on it. Don't count your chickens before they're hatched. Don't think about being protected by welfare. Think about being protected by me. Don't think about the money that welfare gives you. Don't think about the low rent that you have because you're in a subsidized building. Don't think about the rent rebate coming in to give you a little extra so you can buy some luxury. Don't think about it that way. Our whole society is in trouble, in grave circumstances. There are people my age who live in their own houses who are paying 5 utilities. They pay sewage and water and garbage and gas and electric. Oh my. Oh my. And rent and mortgage and taxes on their houses and school taxes. How can they live in a house? I don't know. And then if you buy a house, the houses that are being sold now are like, they look like the old-fashioned townhouses. They're going for over $1 million. No, wait a minute, 100. Wait a minute. The townhouses are going for 100,000 and sometimes more. The little houses, 2-story houses in neighborhoods, they're going for $250,000, and some of them are going for higher than that, like $750,000. Little houses, 2-story houses in neighborhoods. I'm appalled, and I would like to be a real estate agent and make that big bonus check, and then I will say to welfare, ha ha, I don't need you anymore. And so, there's so many things to think about. I am a talented person, but I haven't been able to get published with my writings because if you self-publish, it costs $3,000. Right in the beginning of it. Bingo! If you want to go to a record studio to make a record because you like to sing, that costs more than $1,000 for 1 hour. Bingo! Who has 1,000? Bingo! So maybe I'll save my rent rebate for 2 years, and then maybe next year, if I'm still alive, because I am 74, I'll be 75 in October, if I'm still alive then. Or I could put my paintings on videos and sell my paintings. And then if I sell my paintings, the money will go into my bank account. And then guess what? I'm back around to the beginning again. Welfare looks at your bank accounts and they want to know everything that's in there. So, oh, happy days. Am I still alive? Yes. Do I have any diseases? Well, I don't have bad diseases. I don't have cancer. I don't have high blood pressure. I don't have hearing loss. I have a dentist that puts teeth in here that they're not dentures. I can walk. Sometimes I use a walker. I can think straight if I am able to get everything out. So I'm going to end this video. I said earlier that I was going to do 6 videos on this topic, and this is only number 2. So stay tuned for the 3rd one. Thank you.